Welcome to the broadcast, my dear old Faroot. It appears to be official. There is a new home for the Prince and Princess of Wales in the works, and that new home is in Windsor. It's just a short drive from where they are already, at Adelaide Cottage. They are relocating to Forest Lodge. Indeed, this Grade 2 listed building with 8 bedrooms, 3-storey red brick house with Venetian windows, marble fireplaces and room for a pony, is where the Waleses are intending to stay forever. It's their forever home for before and after William's accession to the throne. The children, of course, are very happy in that area. They love being at Lambrook. They're very happy and settled at Lambrook, and they feel safe there. And of course, that's just a stone's throw around the corner. And there is surrounding land at Forest Lodge with several cottages. There's a pond and a tennis court. And they've already been doing some light renovation work to prepare the place for royalty. There's no live-in staff, it's noted. How very modern. No help, heaven forbid. Where's a good char when you need one? Megan, there's a vacancy going for you at Forest. Not at Frogsbourne, your old dwelling place, but at Forest Lodge, where our fair princess and handsome Prince Big Willie are to be sojourning. Now, this is wonderful news. Of course, they will still take all their holidays on the Sandringham estate, round Norfolk at Anmer Hall. Forest Lodge was once known as Holly Grove. Isn't that charming, Holly Grove House? I must say that I don't find it especially aesthetically pleasing from the exterior, you understand, but then all of those parts of the portfolio on the Windsor estate I'd never actually fallen in love with from an aesthetic point of view, from Royal Lodge to many of the rest of them, other than Windsor Castle itself, you understand. It doesn't really ring my bell, but we hope they'll be very happy there. And of course, yesterday, the 15th, was the 75th birthday of the Princess Royal, and photos were released, taken at Gatcombe by John Swanell, celebrating that fact. And actually, I was looking over some old footage of Anne, because a few tributes came up and a few compilations of Anne, and I was studying her expression, as I do for all members of the royal family, all the time, to see what glimpses you can catch of other royals. And I saw so much of William in some of her expressions, especially some of those expressions that flash in and out of existence on the visage that I had previously associated with the late Diana. I thought they were all Diana and Spencer traits coming up in William's face, but actually it was clear as the nose on Anne's face. I could see William there. Little flickers of Anne, and of Charles, of course. And Anne, as you know, is highly praised as an impeccable royal and a style icon of timeless elegance. She continues to be. And, you know, there are critics of traditional royalty, if you like, who speak of the need for more modern princesses that aren't necessarily and always born of the blood. Do you understand? The royal blood. I'm talking about the Dianas, all the way through to the Megans, you know. But our royal princesses actually have been bucking trends for modern femininity in all of its guises since, for example, the birth of Princess Anne in 1950. All throughout her life she's been witty, intelligent and a dedicated servant to all of us, but doesn't follow any stereotypical path for what you might associate with a traditional reserve of a British princess, do you understand? No, she doesn't at all. No one can say that about Anne. She does things her way. And actually, you could look at the life of the Princess Margaret Rose, who straddled the old world for sure. There was so much wonderful old-fashioned quality in her, inherited from her late mother. But she was at the same time very contemporary, and she moved in the circles of art and music and literature and culture, and with a sort of bohemian bent, if you will, the bohemian set of the day. So she was modern in her way. But Anne it is that attained such affection and respect of not just the kingdom, but of the world. You see it, you feel it, my dear. And the Megans of this world, they harp on about being authentic. Let's be authentic. Let's do this authentically. Let's project an image and an aura of authenticity, whereas the Princess Royal simply is authentic. Do you understand? She doesn't have to be anything or try for anything or aim for anything or project anything. She's just simply Anne, authentic Anne, the Princess Royal, and warm wishes were received from every corner of empire and beyond the colonies. Fruits from all over the globe And Anne's birthday actually fell on the same day as the 80th anniversary celebrations for VJ Day, Victory in Japan Day. And the rightful stars of this day were the veterans, many of whom are over 100 years old, you know, and it was such a fine Sikh gentleman by the name of Yavar Abbas, who I believe is 104 years old. Some reports say 105, but whether it's 104 or 105, what a fine-looking gentleman, so well preserved, astonishingly so, in his second spring season. Do you see the joys of the second spring season once you leapfrog over 100? Yes, you return to your spring season. And doesn't he just look? A picture. And it was him who moved their majesties to tears, because he told the king, "I make no apology for going briefly off the script to salute my brave king who is here with his beloved queen, despite the fact that he is under treatment for cancer. And if it provides any comfort, I've been rid of it for the past 25 years and counting." Wasn't it very moving and so touching to see their majesties dissolving into puddles of tears? I actually heard the king tell Captain Abbas at the reception that followed afterwards, he says, "You made me cry." You made me cry, yes.
You made me cry. I was sick. I haven't had a cup of tea. I thought maybe it was going to give to me.
Well, it was a very dignified gathering, and you witness here the last golden threads of that generation's golden tapestry. Aren't we lucky to be living and walking among such heroes? This was a service of remembrance hosted by the Royal British Legion at the National Memorial Arboretum, and it included a 2-minute silence and a flypast with the red arrows. Queen Camilla wore the regimental brooch, and there were 1,500 guests, 33 of whom were veterans, aged from 96 to 105, and they were the ones who served in the Far East and the Pacific. The king laid a wreath, and the Queen, who is Colonel-in-Chief of the Rifles, laid a posy, which was very charming. Ron Gumbley, at the age of 101, read "For the Fallen" by the poet Lawrence Binyon, although my rendition will not compare with this gentleman's, who read so beautifully. It really was a moving service. I can't put everything in that I'd like to here due to copyright reasons. It depends where they're being broadcasted and from whence they sprang, so I would show you his own rendition, but I can't, so I will read some of that myself at the end of the broadcast today. At the reception afterwards, their majesties, together with the Prime Minister and Lady Starmer, enjoyed tea with the veterans and their families and their carers. And I was watching through some footage of VJ Day itself in 1945, because YouTube is such a wonderful archive for all of that sort of material. I'm always going back and looking in time. And I was looking over the old footage from that very day here in London, and actually towards the end of one news piece, someone said that they'd been told by someone in the crowd who had been a soldier, "This war will be forgotten in 6 years' time," he said. "Despite all the millions and trillions out on the streets," he said, "this war will be forgotten." Well, they are being remembered this week, 80 years afterwards, but let's face it, with the passage of time we become less and less aware of the huge threats we were facing and the astonishing achievements of us and our allies, of course, throughout the world. VJ Day, Victory in Japan, is often overlooked because VE Day, for one, Victory in Europe Day, which we celebrated recently, is better known, and that seems to catch all of the limelight. But you can see the scenes of jubilation here, which are absolutely infectious. And I have London relatives myself who are still living today, who are probably about 14, maybe in their mid-teens at the time that this footage were captured, and might actually, I have yet to ask them, but might actually have been among the throngs there in Trafalgar Square on that very day. But isn't it astonishing, because it looks like such a different world, doesn't it, in the characters? But this is why, actually, I have such a pronounced affection, a tendency to nostalgia, if you will, regarding both pre-war and post-war London, extending all the way back to Dickensian times as well. But it all informs so much of my own character and my own psyche, the way that I view the world. A great-grandfather of mine actually served in the Burma campaign. He was quite a senior ranking military man, and he continued in Burma actually for some time after VJ Day, because after these celebrations actually a lot did continue overseas, out of sight, out of mind, for some time. and he was deep into this Far East campaign, which is absolutely brutal. Should go without saying, but he actually used to have a collection of photographs, I'm sure they must still be in the family, of they were shocking photographs, very graphic photographs. I remember a pile of heads. These were shown to me when I was very young, actually. One didn't believe that it was true, but there were a pile of heads, and I can't remember whether they were allied or enemy heads in a big pile that had been severed in action. Isn't it gruesome? You know, myself and my cousin's extended family would look on in horror, but this was the realities of war, which still goes on today, as we all know. It's still happening at this very moment. Isn't it sickening to think of? But I remember my great-grandfather. I remember him very well. He was quite an affectionate man for his generation, and he used to make a very good porridge in the mornings for me. And he was famous also for making a good custard. Now, when I was young, I didn't like the skin on custard, but my mother absolutely adored it, so I used to give the skin to her, and she would scoff it down. These days, of course, I would be right after the skin. I love it now that I'm older. But yeah, he used to do a good porridge, a good custard, and he had a streak of eccentricity running through his character. Surprise, surprise. But of everyone in the family, he was the one that had this, what was seen as eccentricity. But looking back, we've all come to the realization that he was likely suffering quite profoundly from the traumas, what would now be known as PTSD, from his time in that campaign, you know, as a very young man abroad in a fairly senior military position. There was something off-kilter about him. And now with hindsight and with education and knowledge, we can see where it came from back in those days of the war. The Prince and Princess of Wales said, "We remember the British and Commonwealth troops of allies who fought in the Asia-Pacific and are enduring debt to them." And of course the victory was over Imperial Japan, who surrendered 80 years ago. And my thoughts do extend to the beloved fruits of Japan, by the way. I do have Japanese basketeers. Japan went on to thrive, of course, with an enviable society. And actually, I regret not going to visit Japan. I had a great friend of mine who's a director who went to work over there. She said, "Come over, hang with me for a while," but I was busy, to be honest, and probably couldn't afford to go. But I wish that I had forced myself to go with her, because she has such fond memories of it. She had to return many times. I've had friends that have worked there a lot, and I'm told what a wonderful society it became. And also, of course, it's known for its great style. Diana Vreeland was a huge fan of Japan, if you like her. Took great inspiration from the style, the ancient culture. One of my favourite novels of all time, of course, Memoirs of a Geisha, Arthur Golden. Wonderful novel, highly recommended. And as I say, I have basketeers from Japan, and just by chance, I heard from one today, Yoshiko in Japan. I sent a keepsake to, which she received this week. The King marked the anniversary with an audio message and a montage. In recording so much suffering, we must not lose sight of how great was the cause and how sweet the victory. For those heroes of VJ Day gave us more than freedom, they left us the example of how it can and must be protected. As for Meghan and Harry Sussex, well, they haven't been celebrating VJ Day so much as Steak and BJ's Day, which I believe is the 14th of March. Oh, every day's a Steak and BJ's Day. Ha ha! For the Harkles, isn't it? Actually, I'm joshing, because my understanding is actually that Meghan quit all of that business once the marriage deal was done and the progeny was sired. Yes, this is indeed my information. Now, I'm going to have to give you this information in a delicate fashion, and you can read between the lines as to what I'm telling you, but there are those whisperers out there who claim that Meghan has a propensity for, shall we say, the skills of a Steak and BJ Day mistress, paying lip service to gentlemen, should we put it that way. A practiced technique with the lips and the tongue. Of course, I'm talking about the love language, you know, the language of love. What else would I be talking about, my dear? Well, my information is actually that in Harry's case, those kind of skills of the lip service aren't necessarily required, because it is Harry, it is he who likes to dine on with a companion. How do I put this delicately? He likes to do to a companion what folk used to do with a postage stamp before they were self-adhering. You understand? To feast on the company of a filly, to devour their presence. I don't know how I can get the information over to you any other way, but his linguistic skills might be thought of as cunning. All Meghan has to do, I am told, is lie back and think of Montecito and enjoy the view, which happens to be an orange sunset on the horizon, the hills and valleys. And I'm sorry, I can't be more specific, but you'll have to use your imaginative skills. I did notice that on the 14th of August, Richard Eden gave us an exclusive saying, don't believe the gushing nonsense you're hearing about Meghan and Harry's Netflix deal. I've been told the truth and it's very different. Well, he then goes on to reveal precisely what I told you 2 days earlier than that article in my broadcast. Harry and Meghan have been dumped. I call it something like that, so I gave you that information. Richard Eden reports it 2 days later and passes it off as an exclusive. I ask you. Well, as for Catherine, our Princess of Wales, she furnished us with another edition of her Mother Nature series. This time she turns from spring to summer, telling us that our lives flourish when we cherish the bonds of love and friendship. It has never been more important to appreciate the value of one another and of Mother Nature. Here's to summer, C. Well, it was very nicely read, but I don't like all of this initial nonsense with C, C and W, C, G, L, C, O. It's too many letters, my dear. Drop it. Just Catherine would be really nice. It's beginning to feel like an extension of the letters community. We've got quite enough of that. Ty Henderson says, River, I remember you are a fan of Sex and the City. Did you watch the finale of And Just Like That? Love to hear what you made of it. Well, we've discussed And Just Like That before, and Sex and the City and Sarah Jessica Parker, so just an update for those of you who are also fans of the original series. Well, you might recall that I am Team Sarah Jessica, by the way. Yes, I am an unapologetic Team Sarah Jessica. I absolutely adore her. Kim Cattrall, I think, let down the side and let down the team and pulled a bit of a Meghan. I think that the series did, however, rely on the chemistry of all four of the main characters. I don't think any of them could have pulled it off with great aplomb as a standalone, whether Kim Cattrall, Sarah Jessica, or any of them. It relied on the chemistry of all four. I like Cynthia Nixon as a person, by the way, but she is insufferably woke as a person. Her personal politics, you know, she does very much to that side of things in a way that's quite insufferable, although I think she is a nice person. But I do feel that her own proclivities subsumed the character of Miranda and what that character got up to in And Just Like That. And also, I never enjoyed Charlotte's relationship with her husband. I didn't like his character at all, or that relationship. So I was never really into that. But as for And Just Like That as a whole, which is now finished, it should have totally ignored all of the woke issues that it focused on and that became the themes for most episodes and for the series itself. It was a huge mistake. It was far too apologetic in tone. It was all produced in the wake of BLM, post-COVID era, so it was hypersensitive to all of these issues, and I'm afraid that it just ruined the whole fantasy, didn't it? It should have just brought back unapologetic glamour and excitement and a bit of fantasy. Although there were a few good moments in the first couple of series here and there, it still wasn't the unbridled delight that Sex and the City was, and by the time this final third series came around, I just wasn't interested. I tried to tune into the first 1 or 2 episodes, but it lost my interest. Same with Virgin River, actually. 6 or 7 series in, I've finally lost interest and switched off of that for good. I also think that it had a dreadful title from the start, And Just Like That. Awful way to name a series. Just awful. So my interest waned, although I did watch these 2 final episodes that were released this week. Well, I say I watched, I kind of skipped through and saw some of the highlights, to be honest with you. And it was a damp squib. It was a damp squib on a damp squib, despite the best efforts of the cast and crew, who I think tried very hard to create something worthwhile, but there's no getting away from it. It has tarnished the legacy of Sex and the City. It's tarnished, forever tarnished, which is such a shame because, I mean, the movies after Sex and the City finished were, by and large, enjoyable and fun, and they were okay. But it was the original series that glittered. And the final episodes of that series, the couple where she went to Paris and Big arrived and there was all that hullabaloo, I just thought it was the most exquisite television. I really did. I thought it was perfection for a finale, an exquisite ending, and although it left us all wanting more, that was the magic of it, and it should have stopped there, I think, at the end of the original series. In hindsight, that's what I would do, just cut it off at this wonderful, fantastical climax. Kept everyone wanting more and more, but never returning to it because it was never going to live up to it. Not only because this new edition was so woke, but also I was watching an interview with Marta Crane recently, one of the writers of Friends, and she was talking about the fact that so many creative projects now are not given the time or space to breathe, and you will often only be offered a maximum of 3 episodes when it comes to streaming series, so there's a sort of stifling atmosphere in the entire industry itself anyway. But in a strange way, I will say, Ty, that And Just Like That, see, it's so hard to get the title of it tripping off the tongue, isn't it? You really have to think about the series title because it begins with the word and. It's stupid. But in a strange way, its bleakness mirrors the reality of where we find ourselves in 2025. The joy of the Western world was in full fancy when the Sex and the City franchise bowed out in 2004, which was 21 years ago. And now we find ourselves arriving in the bleak husk of the world and of New York. The bleak husk that we have here in 2025. I'm afraid it is depressing news, but it wasn't only escapism that was found in Sex and the City. It was the fact that real city life was actually just that good. It was just that good back then. But now, in 2025, it's just a pale imitation. It's a pale shadow of those sparkling decades of the pre- and post-war Anglosphere. Our great glittering world. Gone. Gone to wokedom, gone to insane immigration and illegals, gone to war, gone to smoking bans and overzealous mantras about diversity being our strength and all of that bollocks. Gone. And just like that. I'll leave you now with a short reading of For the Fallen by Lawrence Binion, as I promised, and I look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast. Thank you so much for your company, and toodle pip. With proud thanksgiving, the mother for her children, England mourns for her dead across the sea. Flesh of her flesh they were, spirit of her spirit, fallen in the cause of the free. Solemn the drums thrill, death august and royal sings sorrow up into immortal spheres. There is music in the midst of desolation, and a glory that shines upon our tears. They went with songs to the battle, they were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted, they fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. They mingle not with their laughing comrades again. They sit no more at familiar tables of home. They have no lot in our labour of the daytime. They sleep beyond England's foam. But where our desires are, and our hopes profound, felt as a wellspring that is hidden from sight, to the innermost heart of their own land they are known, as the stars are known to the night. As the stars that shall be bright when we are dust, moving in marches upon the heavenly plain, as the stars that are starry in the time of our darkness, to the end they remain.